This was set to be an eventful year for India and Pakistan. After long negotiations, the two countries had agreed to hold talks between their national security advisors in August, the first formal talks in 3 years. But before it even began, the question of Kashmir came up and derailed plans.
कश्मीरियों को अलग रखने की शर्त लगाकर भारत मुज़ाकरात से भाग गया.
The talks were off and media in both countries reverted to type.
पाकिस्तान की अक्ल पर एटम बम पड़ गया है क्या?
Both medias tend to be generally hostile. Neither side is prepared to accept that they may be at fault. And the interesting thing is that both medias are broadly inclined to accept the point of view of the national security establishment.
There was a very hostile press in India. I'll give you an example. There is a very popular channel, very jingoistic channel.
You are trying to sabotage the talks. It's self-evident to everyone tonight.
What they were doing was that they turned it into a kind of a boxing match.
Talking to them is giving them a cloak of respectability.
This is not a tone of journalism. It's very naive, it's very immature, and it's pointlessly hostile.
In Pakistan, the narrative is about the enemy country, and they use a particular Urdu phrase which is called Dushman Hamsaya.
हमारे सामने वाली सरहद पर हम जानते हैं दुश्मन रहता है.
This is used very often in Pakistani media. Both sides have taken the position that the other is a hostile.
There's been an unwritten rule since the 90s. India will only ever accredit 2 journalists from Pakistan and vice versa. In 2011, Radio Pakistan withdrew its correspondent from New Delhi, citing high costs. And then last year, the 2 Indian journalists working in Pakistan were sent home. Their visa extensions refused without explanation. The situation has meant media outlets in both countries staff their cross-border operations with locals.
There is an argument that, well, we can just link them up to a camera and have a conversation from a studio in New Delhi.
Lieutenant Colonel retired Shafqat Saeed, Raksha Visheshagya, Pakistan se hamare saath hain.
But I can say from my experience of having been there that it's not the conversations that you have for 10 minutes over a video link. It is actually living among Pakistanis, being with them in their marriages, in their deaths, in their births, in their festivals. These are nuances that you get, I think, only when you go to that place.
See, I am not very sure that the placing of Indian correspondents in Pakistan or the Pakistani correspondents in India is a solution. The problem is the system on both sides is controlled by intelligence agencies. They make life miserable for you.
When there have been big events in Pakistan in the last few years, whether it was elections before that, whether it was the assassination of Benazir Bhutto, and even today when there's a bomb blast in Pakistan, Indian media will turn to their colleagues across the border to get their reportage for Indian channels. Pakistani media will often call us up and ask us for our assessment of an Indian story. So there is that level of trust between Indian and Pakistani media. Where that trust does not exist is really when it comes to India-Pakistan relations themselves, and they have gotten worse.
There are journalists who try to break the narrative mold on stories like Kashmir, terrorism and cross-border issues. As the security talks were crumbling in August, 2 channels on opposite sides of the divide covered the story in a different way. Together.
आज हम बात करेंगे पाकिस्तान और भारत के जो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइजर्स हैं.
From Islamabad, the Urdu channel Geo News broadcast a show hosted simultaneously from New Delhi by an anchor from the Hindi channel Aaj Tak.
कि दरअसल इस्लामाबाद का रास्ता दिल्ली आता है, लेकिन वो कश्मीर होकर क्यों आना चाहता है?
The host from one side asked questions of the panel on the other. Anywhere else, this would be common sense journalism. But in the India-Pakistan context, it was extraordinary in that it was so civilized.
They were both sides of the story sitting in one story, and it was pieced together across the border. So I think there was a lot of intrinsic value to the effort that went into bringing this program together. Quality of debate, frankly, again, it was binary. It was really like the proverbial twains that shall never meet.
वो जो करारदाद वहाँ पे पास हुई, क्या वो कहती है कि कश्मीर जो है भारत का एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट है।
I've been covering the India-Pakistan relationship for 20 years now, and it has always been difficult, simply because there isn't a common understanding of anything between India and Pakistan. There isn't a common understanding of history, there isn't a common understanding of agreements that both sides have signed, even if they are in black and white.
Complicating the coverage is the fact that both Indian and Pakistani media have seen explosive growth in the last couple of decades. In India, the growth began in the 90s, and now there are nearly 100 news channels in the country. Pakistan's media has grown from a single state broadcaster in 2000 to dozens of channels today. Many of them broadcast Bollywood films to Pakistani audiences. But news output from India is banned, and on Pakistani news channels, the focus on their neighbor has never been as sharp as it is from across the border.
Is this greater anxiety from Pakistan this year linked to India's power push?
Pakistan is the bête noire of the Indian media. It's as though there is a wound deep down in the Indian psyche that they have not yet been able to come to terms with, and that the memory and the scar of that wound is passed on from generation to generation.
The swings in Pakistani media perspective on India are really incredible.
जंग सरहद के उस पार उनकी तरफ लड़ी जाएगी।
So you either have this, go and bomb and take out Delhi lobby.
So let me introduce you heartthrob of Bollywood.
Or you have go and join Bollywood lobby. In between, I think there's a lot of space where media discourse can take place, does not take place, and that's my beef with Pakistani media.
There's decades of history that weighs on journalists in Pakistan and India. The 1947 partition, the subsequent wars, and the ongoing standoff over Kashmir poisoned the bilateral relationship and twisted perceptions in the media. And there is pressure from above, the two governments.
The Indian government increasingly thinks of Indian media as a way of getting its part of the story out, and the Pakistani government does likewise.
Left-wing ke extremists.
The media has to understand that regardless of whether you're Indian media or Pakistani media, you cannot be guided simply by one side of the story.
My colleague Manjit Singh Negi has learned from sources in the Indian intelligence establishment.
And this is unfortunately what is happening more and more.
It mirrors what the two governments want to do. If the two governments say, okay, we are going to talk to each other, at once the media will exactly mirror that and will fall into this embrace. And then the minute the two governments fall apart, the media falls apart. And this is the problem. The media is not able to differentiate itself from the state.